All right. Welcome everyone to the unDavos webinar series. My name is Robin and I'm the community coordinator on the unDavos core team together with Mark and Dorothea. For those that are new to unDavos, unDavos is a community-driven unconference that runs in Davos alongside the World Economic Forum. And our purpose is to give everyone a stage to democratize, humanize, and also bring action to Davos. Our new unDavos webinar series aims to continue the conversations between summits by keeping the pulse alive year-round through bite-sized, high-energy sessions where our community, meaning you, turns ideas into action. We recorded all the content from the 70+ panels during unDavos 2025 on YouTube and podcast, so we highly recommend you to check out all the incredible ideas that was shared there. Also follow us on LinkedIn and our Luma calendar for monthly updates as we journey together towards Davos 2026. And I just shared the links in the chat. As mentioned, unDavos is a community-driven summit, meaning we make ready the stage and you host the sessions. So if you would like to host a session online, apply to host a webinar, either by scanning the QR code or click the webinar application link in the chat. Before we begin today's session, a few Zoom guidelines. So we encourage everyone to turn on your camera, this so we can see each other from across the world. Also, use the chat to ask questions or connect with others during our session. Feel free to share what you're doing, invite others for conversation, and ask questions during the session to the host and speakers. During our session, you can use the hands function if you want to ask a question or share something by clicking that button. And lastly, we invite you to keep the energy visible by using the reactions. Lastly, this session will be recorded and also streamed to YouTube and podcast in case you want to see it again or share the content with others in your network. Now, today we are joined by our hosts, Jannik Böger from Flow Academy Global and Dr. Xiao, Institute for Future Technologies, MIT Media Lab. Together, we'll explore mental health, flow, and AI, a holistic framework this session is called, through dialogue, a piano flow, meditation, and practical tools. I welcome you to stage, Jannik and Xiao.
That should work. Hi, it's so great to be here. And I think it's a very interesting topic in general. So I'm honored to be here with unDavos, as well as Dr. Xiao. I'll be taking over the first part, talking about mental health, mostly also the concept of flow. And then we transition smoothly into how that relates to AI. Xiao.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Xiao. I will be doing the second part of the presentation. My background is in technology, and I will be talking about concrete ways of using LLMs to help you find the answers to the hard questions that Jannik is going to challenge you to think about.
Perfect. Great. I guess with further ado, we can start sharing the screen. And I'll give a little introduction as well, once more to the topic itself. So I would say let's dive right in. Mental health, of course, in this rapidly changing world is becoming more and more of importance. And for me, at the center of this is flow. The concept, or the godfather of flow is Mihaly, somebody who has kind of founded the concept.
Extremely high.
Yeah. And so basically, let's dive right into it. I always say there are three core elements to life when you look at it, right? If you have all three, you're probably very good at mental health and success and leadership if you go forward. So the first one is energy. Nothing would be possible, neither for AI nor for humanity, without it, right? So without the energy, so if we feel burnout or depressed, then there's no energy left to get anything done, even if we know what we want to do, right? So the second element is consciousness. You have to be aware of a problem in order to tackle it. Means if you're unaware that there's a problem, you're not going to go at it, right? So you have to know, you have to have energy, you have to be conscious about what you want to do. And then also the third element is intention. Where do I direct it to? It's like an archer shooting an arrow, right? You need to have the capabilities, you need to have the consciousness of the wind and all the elements that are part of it. Obviously, intention is the target, right? And so this nicely goes into what we're talking about at first is the path to regain and foster energy. People are mostly very unconscious where it's lost and how to regain it when it's gone, right? It's charging a phone. It's easy to plug it in, but we as humans, we struggle more with how that's actually done. So I'm going to go through a few concepts, right? I have a little introduction. We have a few questions at the very beginning, give you a few, well, let's say 30 seconds to reflect on those. Then we go through a little bit of a piano flow meditation, and then we reflect on the same questions and see if there's any difference after the mind is calm. Always look at this like if you've emptied the room, it's easier to find what you're looking for, right? If you've organized it. That's kind of what we're trying to do with that. And I go through a bit of conceptual frameworks, and then maybe we have a quick question answer session before Xiao takes over with the very interesting topic, how AI fits into that. So I always regard the body as a vehicle, like a car. It's a nice metaphor, I feel, because there's so many similarities, right? So if you look at a car, for us humans, that's goals, right? A car, you move through the streets, and your body as a vehicle, you move through life. So without a destination, without goals, right? If you don't know if you're driving to Zurich or to Frankfurt, you're not going to even drive because you don't know where you're going. And then you have the navigation system, right? If that breaks down, you can't read the map, you know where you want to go, but not how to get there. That's the problem. And then you have your mental battery, like the battery in the car, it wouldn't even start. So if you're completely burned out, you might have your goals, you might even know how to get there, but you don't have the energy to do it. Same with nutrition. Fill the car with the wrong fuel and it will stop working, right? Then motivation is kind of like the motor in the car. We need to be motivated. It's like what drives us, right? Which accelerates us. And then we have the lens of perception, how we see things, right? We might think we know where we go, but if the windshield is kind of, if you've driven through heavy rain or snow that you can't really see, and then you go much slower and you might actually not get there. And then obviously your surrounding. Every person is different. Everyone is driven by different things. And anyone who's tried to drive through snow with summer wheels knows that that car is not made for that surrounding. So that's kind of personal, right? Everybody needs to know how they're like, more extroverted, more introverted, what are my hobbies, where I'm good at. So if all these things work well, you're good to go. You've got a good basis. And if not, you need to fix, like you would fix a car, right? With what is actually going wrong with you. And so again, their consciousness is important. You need to know which of these parts might be broken or might not function the way you want them to. So I asked you 3 questions right now, and you can reflect on those for around 30 seconds. I'm going to read them out. Try to be conscious of your mind, how you're going to answer them for yourself. And if you struggle, whatever, it's fine. So what exactly do you want from life? Seems like an easy question, but it can be quite complex, right? And then what stops you from achieving it? Unless you say my mental health is completely fine, my energy is great, right? It's unusual, but What stops you from achieving it? And then what are all the barriers you need to break to actually enjoy life? So I pause here for around 30 seconds. Think about those. And also, once you do, see how a break like this one can also be a powerful tool, right? You don't have to fill space with words all the time, even in conversation. And now we'll have a little clip that the host is going to share.
Yes, so I'm just gonna take over the screen share just quickly. And oh yeah, you need to unshare your screen.
Okay, that's fine.
No worries.
Nice to do that. Another quick last sentence to that. Yeah, try to listen to the music. It's without video for a reason.
All right, I'm gonna start now.
All right. I'll take the screen share back.
Yep.
So two things that, well, the purpose of this is first of all to show you flow. Unfortunately, it's not live because the quality wouldn't be as good. In person, I usually do this live, but this is also being in the moment, right? So it means I compose and improvise in real time. And what it usually does, at least to me, is that it kind of calms, right? So it's all composed on F minor, which is a scale that fosters introspection. So you go kind of inside yourself. And so that's one purpose, to calm the mind and to introspect. And the second reason, of course, it's an example of flow. It means flow, basically in a nutshell, is where without really thinking in the moment, where mastery meets skill and challenge. So ideally, as well as like Harley describes it, when you have a tennis opponent, the opponent should be slightly better than you. If he's really bad, then you get frustrated because it's not really in flow. It's not the game. If he's too good, it's similar, right? You don't have a flow of tennis game. And here with piano or with anything in life, mastery comes first, right? For me, playing the piano now is really easy. For someone who's tried it to learn it, it's probably difficult at first. And that's with everything. At first comes mastery, right? So there is something, before we have these three questions again, really quickly. I'm obviously conscious of playing the piano. I'm there and I witness myself playing the piano, but there's a big unconscious part because I've got no idea if I'm going up a melody or down. I also break some fundamental laws of music, which is fine, right? For example, tempo. It goes faster and slower. You can't really put a metronome to it. So look at these three questions again. I'll give you 30 seconds and try to observe if there's a difference. What exactly do you want from life? What stops you from achieving it? And what are the barriers you need to break in order to fully enjoy it? And again, witness the power of silence. Now, it'd be interesting to hear at the end if you felt a difference the first time you read them. You just came in the meeting, you heard new information, and after you've centered and felt the music, hopefully, be interesting to hear if you felt a difference there. Now, past, present, future, we talk about that a lot in terms of consciousness studies. And there's also this oxymoron in English, at least I see it that way. So we want to get the mind empty. There's nothing left. From that we can create more than we think we can. When mindfulness, of course, I know where the word comes from, but having the mind full of things is the usual state of the mind. Right? So if we're too much in the past, we have depression, right? You think, oh, what have I done? And was I good enough? That XYZ, right? That causes depression and kind of takes energy from you. If you're too much in the future, I've got this exam tomorrow, have I practiced enough? That causes anxiety and also takes energy from you that you could invest right now. So that's one thing also leading up to the problem-solving dilemma. And arguably, the more intelligent you are, the more of a problem you have, because you have to ask yourself this question: can the problem be solved, or is it unsolvable by the thought process? By that I mean, I don't know, if you work at a company and you get a late night message from your boss saying, to your report. And he spent all night, by the way, this true story for me, a few years when I worked for a software company at Frankfurt. And I couldn't quite figure out what was wrong with it. So I spent all night thinking about it, wasting literally glucose in my brain to solve that problem. It couldn't be solved, only through communication. It was too late to call. And the next morning I found out he literally said he sat on his phone. Great work. So it's like, okay, I've wasted a lot of energy for nothing. So ask yourself, can this problem be solved by thought process? Then do it, of course. But if it can't, it's an investment of energy that is meaningless. Not always meaningless. You can find out by yourself if you keep doing that, but you want to direct the energy where it needs to be going. So being aware of this is key. So we have aphorism number 1, consciousness is the seed for everything. You have to be conscious. Right now I'm trying to solve a problem that I can't solve by thinking, right? You have to be aware of that. Then a little bit about reality. Obviously reality is what you perceive through your senses. It might seem real to you, right? What I saw this, I heard this, but it's also a construct of your own consciousness, right? And it will always be subjective in a way, right? And illusion is what happens when you think what your mind makes up is actually objective reality, right? Which can coincide, but sometimes there's a discrepancy quite clearly. And yeah, there's also a concept of lucid living. I'm currently writing a book called Lucid Living. It's like lucid dreaming. You're dreaming and you're aware that you're dreaming, right? So again, consciousness. And lucid comes from Latin, actually, lucedere, to shine a light on something. So you can also, you're aware and you have a sense of direction where you want the dream to go. And if applied to life, it's the same thing. You realize I'm living and you direct it in the way you want it to go, at least to some extent. You don't have, universe throws curveballs at you anytime. Everybody knows that, especially if you own a business. But being in that state of living is actually quite powerful and helps you with mental health and flow. So then there's another thing I just quickly want to touch on, is the importance of authenticity. The moment you try, and there's a quick story I'm going to tell, it's about a tailor in a suit, and the man wants to buy a suit and it doesn't quite fit. And he says, oh, if you lift up your shoulder a little bit and tweak out your leg on the right and tweak your left foot a little bit, then it fits. And you can imagine how he will walk through the city if he actually buys that suit and does that. So being authentic is always less energy draining than trying to erect whatever facade we think we need to. And again, if you think your suit fits, right, reality can become beautiful. You can do things you didn't think you could do by just thinking you actually can. So, right, the lens of perception of reality is yours, which I find quite powerful as well. Now, I think one of the most important slides for mental health is this: thought versus feeling. So there are two mechanisms, right? If you're in this thought process of trying to solve whatever you think you need to do, and you want to get out of it, because it's very easy to say, oh, just relax, don't think about it, right? But what can you actually do? And there's a powerful method that you can do. So by going outside, and by that I mean going through your 5 senses, right? If you're lying in bed at night and you try to solve problems and you're aware and you still can't stop it, right? How does the blanket feel? Is there still a smell of deodorant, perfume from me? I don't know, right? What do I see? You look around. There's a toothpaste tastes like, I don't know. If you keep doing that long enough, you realize you stop thinking. And it's a very powerful technique doing that, because it literally gets you out of your head, which is consuming a lot of energy. We know that the brain scientifically uses up 80% of energy. So this is something you can use to get back at a good energy saving level. Then just very quickly, if you feel you need to avoid feelings that are there, try not to. Try to endure them. The way out actually is through. So sometimes very easy to be aware, right? You've just missed a train, you see the red lights, you feel anger, then you know I'm angry, right? But most of the time people don't know what they're feeling. So trying to find the source of what you feel is actually quite important, because only then you can find a solution, right? And feel the emotion, feel the anger that you've missed the train, you might be late for a meeting, however important it is, right? So trying to numb that is never really a good idea, because it will come back. So source of energy, it's individual for everyone. Here's a small list that I use to regain energy, right? For me, it's listening to music. Again, it's one of these senses. And for me, I'm a musician. It helps me a lot. Meditation, if done right, a lot of people think it's sitting on the floor, closing your eyes, and then everything will be fine. Mostly trapping people in their heads even more. It's a training thing. I do advise to have at least one sense involved, focusing on that, just like we discussed earlier. Sports dancing, good for the body. It feels physically draining, but it's usually a source for mental energy. And then, yeah, for me, it's the focusing on the first sense. So for some people, it's walking through the forest. Again, it's probably because you hear the birds, you see the trees, the beauty of nature, whatever it is for you, you can make a list for yourself. Energy leeches, also sometimes a paradox, because the very thing that leeches energy is also usually the thing that gives you energy. Conversation, right? Whoever's been in a relationship knows this. Like if you say, "Oh, darling, you didn't take the trash out again," I'm saying, "I knew it. You're useless." Feels very different to a conversation like, "Oh, if you just take the trash out now, we can start the movie. I would love to watch with you and cuddle up." Sounds very different, right? It's energy giving for both. So be aware of the conversations that you have with people. And you can't avoid conversations anyways. So, but we don't even need a conversational partner to bring ourselves down. We're very capable of doing that on our own, right? Do think of things that need to be processed that are painful, sure. But we do play these mind games, right? So what you've done is done. It's kind of a very stupid realization to let these things go, but try to be aware of your own conversations as well that you do with yourself. And then obviously the body, if you're ill, if you've got the flu, be aware that definitely can affect the mind, but just then take care of your body and it will go back to status quo. I'm very briefly touching on this because I'm handing over to Xiao very soon. The waves of the ocean and the weather. So if you're a captain on a ship, right, it's very easy if it's kind of sunny and the ocean is calm. It's easy to navigate. But if I told you I'm going to control the weather and it's only going to be sunny from now onwards, I'm a fool, right? I can't do that. So there will always be curveballs from the universe, right? So there will be things that are going to be unpleasant, right? A friend moves to a different city or break up with the girlfriend, can be anything really. That is comparably to the captain rough sea, right? So it's very difficult to navigate through an ocean that is wavy and it's dark and there's a storm and there are waves. But it will happen in life anyways, whether you want to or not. So the more conscious you become and the more intense life gets, the more you're actually mastering that skill, right? What is piano for me? This is the essence of life that one has to master. And do enjoy the downs as much as the ups, because they will come anyways, right? And try to stop the mind carousel and just go with it, with the flow, right? Very quickly, we're talking about attachment. Of course, we kind of crave success, we want to move forward, we want to master things, but attachment So, for example, I had a discussion with the former professor of mine. I was running across from my grandmother, and he said, "Well, if you lose it, you'll be very sad." And I was like, "Yes, of course." He's like, "You shouldn't be. Why is that, right?" Anyway, so that same night, I gave that cross to a beggar, and I felt awful. It was to be expected. But then also my professor gave me a new thing. I was like, "That's ironic. So I've just given away some sort of attachment, and you've given me something new to attach to." But still, if I lost this today, I would be fine. And technically, possession is illusion. You have your body, your soul, your mind. And in LA, literally, houses burned down half a year ago. People lost everything. It can be taken anytime, right? So all you have is your existence. That's beautiful. And if you lose something, you gain something. It's a circle of life. So accepting that is a very powerful experience, right? Because life provides with new experiences every day, good and bad. That doesn't change, right? So find comfort in that, I guess. And so the last thing before I hand over to Xiao Xiao, there's a Chinese farmer story, and I think this closes nicely. So there's a Chinese farmer. He owns a horse, and he has a son. And one night the horse runs away, and the whole village comes out. "This is terrible news. Your only horse is gone." Says, "Well, we don't know yet if it's good news or bad news." And like, how can it be good news? It's gone, right? And the next day the horse comes back with a wild horse. The whole village comes and says, "Oh, no, you've got two horses. That's fantastic. That's really good news." And he said, "Well, if it's good news or bad news, we don't know yet," right? So they, after the son's meant to train the horse, falls off the horse, breaks his leg. Whole village comes, "That's terrible news." He said, "We don't know yet." And they're like, "Well, he can't sweet talk this one. He's broken his leg. This is terrible news for sure." And the day after that, the constable comes to collect all fit men for military. So the son can't go. And again, good news, right? You can spin the story as much as you want, but trying to predict a good event for negative or negative for good is just impossible to do, because you never quite know what an event or what the parallel reality would be, right, if it was different. And also, I would say, for mental health, find comfort in this story, because when something bad happens, it can have a good outcome. You might have lost that one job, but then something beautiful happens, right? You can't predict. So this level of intuition that we need to develop in order to feel fine, right? Any river, right? Any flow that might take you somewhere might feel like the wrong destination, but you just have no idea of the reality of a different future that you might have had, right? So I close with this aphorism. So the goal is the journey, and the journey is the goal. It's a Japanese old saying. So from there, I would invite everybody to just think about how your life has unfolded, and how usually the small dominoes, right, are kicking down the big ones. Nobody's planned to, I don't know, meet their wife at an ice cream store, randomly chatting and then connecting, and then this kicks off everything, right? It's usually the random events, if you think about it carefully, not the ones you've planned, but the ones that's been thrown at you. And don't feel insignificant in this. Just know that you're part of this entire thing that's unfolding in front of you, which is beautiful and powerful, both ups and downs, wherever it takes you. And I would love to close with this. And I will take 2 minutes of questions, if that's possible, and then hand over to Xiao Xiao, if anyone has any. Otherwise, you can think until the end and then ask them then. If we don't have any questions, you can post them in the chat if I understood correctly. If not, we'll have the time at the end, because Dr. Xiao Xiao has to leave slightly earlier than me. I don't see any questions. All right. And one last thing before I hand over. Can you still hear me? Yeah. I always say if we share one thing with God or whatever we call this above, it's creation. We create our reality every moment in time, constantly moving forward, weaving together so many things. And when we come to I think that will be very interesting to see that connection. So, Dr. Xiao Xiao, it's up to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jannik, for reminding us of these profound wisdom from across the ages. I love the Chinese proverb, 塞翁失马. I'm Chinese origin. And yeah, there are lots of stories about Chinese farmers and lessons to learn. So my part of the presentation is going to be focusing on AI tools, specifically LLMs, for conscious introspection. And I like to think of them as mirrors and compasses. But first, just a really quick introduction of who I am and a bit of my projects. If my screen is going to, uh, oh, this is interesting. Somehow my screen is frozen. Uh, what can I do? Oops. Okay, a little bit of the delay. That's okay. All right, so, oh, this is really odd that it's so laggy. Um, what is a solution for
Is it
this?
PDF or PPT?
It's Keynote. Because I have some videos, but worst case, I can also open the PDF version if that's easier. Or I can just talk. Okay, you know what? I might move this here. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna try one more time. Please bear with me. Um, to stop the share of the screen and to reshare. And if that doesn't work, then I will open the Keynote version. Life is full of unexpected things.
Curveballs from the universe. Take your time.
Yeah. Well, the main thing is that I have a kid that I need to pick up. Okay.
Yes, we don't know.
Okay, there we go. Now it's working. I think it's just in the way that I shared it. Okay, so I'm still Xiao Xiao. And I am the director of IFT, which is Institute for Future Technologies at Da Vinci Higher Education, located in Paris. If you're ever here, please feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to host you for a visit or a chat. So concretely, my day-to-day job is running a master's program in creative technology, mostly for engineering and some design students. I am also a researcher in human-computer interaction, working on topics related to extended reality, artificial intelligence, learning, and our institute also has projects around art and entrepreneurship. In addition, I had done all my studies at MIT and I was in grad school, master's and PhD at the MIT Media Lab, and am still a research affiliate and doing some research collaborations over there. I am also a multimedia artist and also musician. I've been playing the piano since I was 4 years old. I also have an improvisation practice. I sing a bit and I also play this weird and wonderful instrument called the theremin. So just very quickly, a bit of my project. So this is something that I worked on a large-scale art installation in New Orleans on different metaphors of the mind from throughout history, located in a four-story elevator cage. This is an example of combining vocal synthesis with the theremin to sing with borrowed voices of other people. This is a project that I worked on, gosh, over 10 years ago on projecting little animated characters on the piano to have a better understanding of musical expression through the body. I hope this plays, but this is actually, so Mirror Fugue is perhaps the project that's closest to my heart, another piano theme here. And so since I was young, I was always really mesmerized by the reflections of my hands on the reflected surfaces of the piano. and using augmented reality. And I recorded videos, which I projected back onto a Yamaha Disclavier where the keys move. And I was fortunate enough to have met Ryuichi Sakamoto when he visited MIT, and I recorded him. And I'm doing studies on the effect of playing, improvising with pianists from the past and bringing people back and how that relates to memory and deep emotional experiences. But actually, speaking of AI at MIT, I was also lucky enough to have gotten to know Marvin Minsky, who's considered one of the big pioneers in the field of artificial intelligence. He is most well known for making the first ever neural net. And but what people may not know about him was that he had a piano improvisation practice. Notably, he improvised in the style of Bach and Beethoven. And here is a recording that I had made of him on my project to bring him back as a sort of virtual ghost in the piano. And this is kind of hanging out at his house, actually a few months before he passed. But what's really interesting about Marvin is that, well, in artificial intelligence, the big goal is making machines that think. And Marvin's approach was trying to understand how people think. And thinking, as understood by Marvin, was not just thoughts in your head, but it also encompassed the emotions. He had a book called The Emotion Machine on the importance of emotions in human thinking, but as well as the sort of flow embodied experience exemplified by his own piano practice. So if Marvin's goal was making machines that think by understanding how people that think, I'd like to think that my goal, or the goal that I would like to talk about in this talk, is understanding how we as humans think using machines that think. And I put these in quotes because I want to talk about the word think, because it's quite a suitcase word, as Marvin might say, which is a word that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. We think we know what it means, but actually it's not so evident. So we look at the dictionary. This is Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of think. Okay, it talks about the mind, about opinions, basically everything that's sort of cerebral, something, mental thoughts. But so I was born in China. I moved to the States when I was a kid, and I've always existed across Chinese and Western cultures. And it's interesting to look at the Chinese word on to think, because whereas in the West we consider thought and feeling to be totally different, to be almost opposite diametrical poles, in Chinese, the character for mind is also the same character as for heart. And reflection or thinking in Chinese is actually inherently emotion based. And this is perhaps my favorite character in all of Chinese is the word for to think, which has the character for image or representation above the character for mind and heart. And so I think this resonates a lot with what Jannik was saying earlier about the importance of this sort of deep reflection where you're not only just lost in your thoughts, but you're also feeling. But there's also another aspect of feeling, which is connected to the feeling of your body, as Jannik was talking about earlier. So I'm an academic. I like to nerd out about cognition and about references. And so, of course, in the academic world, and especially in human computer interaction, we talk about embodied cognition as being something that's quite important, which is about thinking is not just about representations, abstract things in your mind, like the French, I think, therefore I am, but rather it is about enacting in a world on the basis of your experiences. And I think this also resonates with the fact, with what Yannick was talking about, of feeling your own body as you are thinking about something to be grounded, which is also talked about in a lot of contemplative traditions from around the world. Okay, so we can talk about human thinking in encompassing not just the intellect, which is the abstract symbolic reasoning part, but also the body and the emotions. And here I have this little diagram that I drew. So personally, actually, when I'm grounded in my body, I literally feel waves. Something that's kind of interior, perhaps we call it interoception, perhaps some people call it chills, but I call them my waves. And it's sort of a way for me to know when I'm not just in my head, but sort of grounded in my body. Whereas AI thinking, and I think actually, if we ask about the question of what is the fundamental difference between artificial and human intelligence, is the fact that AI thinking is actually only abstract symbolic manipulation. So then how do we reconcile the two and how do the two work together? So for me, actually, the AI is, and especially the sophisticated LLMs that we have today, are sort of a sort of mirror that can that can be a powerful mirror for our thoughts. And so we can give it something that's not super formed and it can distill out the essence that we're thinking. And it can also help guide us the way that we might have a conversation with a friend or even a sort of mentor. And so this idea of mirrors for the mind from different sort of traditions in introspection and contemplative traditions, we can actually see a lot all across cultures. So there are dialoguing traditions like Socratic dialogues, where he would pose questions to his pupils to challenge them, or even the Buddhist idea of having, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this word, but a sort of spiritual friend with whom you have conversations about your own development, somebody to not only kind of push you along, but also to challenge you. There are the disputations of the medieval Christian monks. So across different spiritual traditions, there's the idea of talking to somebody about your internal state and trying to figure out what you want, but also other aspects of your patterns, if you will, of trying to be more conscious. And there's also these traditions where people journal, where they try to put their thoughts on paper. Notably, we can think of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, famous for his stoicism, his meditations, which are not meant for other people, but are meant to examine himself. Or even the idea in Chinese Confucianism of self-examination, or again in Christian culture, from Saint Ignatius Loyola, the guy who founded the Jesuits, the examen, or of once again probing inside yourself and trying to see what is there. And actually, for me, I see a profound opportunity of using AI tools for this purpose of trying to figure out what is inside of yourself. What do you care about? What do you want? What are you triggered by? And the advantage of these tools is that at the same time, they're always available. You don't have to bother another person. And they can also take sort of kind of half-formed thoughts and distill it into something cleaner. And you can also have it connect your own thinking to the thinking of other people, which is really quite powerful. So you might be thinking, okay, well, AI for introspection, that sounds like therapy bots. And yes, there is a sort of movement these days with a bunch of platforms like Wobot, Wisa, Replica.ai, where you have robots that are designed for mental health. But what I'm proposing is a bit different, because whereas therapy bots are about giving you listening and especially validation. So you might talk about, oh my gosh, like somebody was so mean to me at work today, and the bot's like, yeah, like I hear you, like it's normal to be like that. The goal here is not just to be comforted and to not be in your own kind of story loops, but to develop more awareness and more consciousness. However, of course, as with anything, using such a potent technology such as AI, there are risks. And I'd like to highlight three of these. So number one is it reflects what you bring. And so this means that you really have to be honest with yourself. And I think it's also useful to prompt the AI, and I'll give examples of this later, to be radically transparent with you and not to just flatter you or tell you things that make you feel good. There's also the risk of putting too much authority on the AI, of this idea that, well, the AI always sprouts out things that are very eloquent, but eloquence is not the same thing as truth. And I think here it's about not blindly following what the machines give you, and to go with the metaphor of Jannik, you are always the driver because you're the one with the body. You're the one who are able to feel the truth in your own body. And I think this is, I can't stress this enough, being able to feel your own body as you talk to the AI and feeling a sense of, does it really resonate with you or is it way off? Only you can decide that. And finally, watching out for bias. And so, as I said earlier, prompting for radical transparency and trying to, once again, feel what is true for you. So that said, I would like to share some of the prompts that I use personally to help me become more aware using ChatGPT. So maybe one note, I've been doing this for months, and it was ChatGPT 4.0. That was the one that I was using. And with the switch to five, initially it was a bit jarring because five was a lot more, there were a lot more judgment and more what normal people or like what most people would do. Whereas four was more tailored toward what I was kind of what I had been prompting it to do. But more and more, I think the more that you use it, you just tell it what you want from it and it will adapt. Okay, so number one is I like to use LLMs to identify my own patterns and tendencies that I may not be aware of. I use it a lot for work. I use it to look things up. And actually, you would be surprised at even in just small things that you ask, you don't even have to talk to it about emotions. But I just asked it one day after, I don't know, like a couple of years of using it just for work. In all our interactions, what patterns or tendencies do you notice in me that I may not be aware of? That I ought to be if I wish to live more consciously. And then with the additional prompt of please give me radical transparency, blunt honesty, don't just tell me things to make me feel good. And it was actually super interesting what it gave me. I won't share the details, but if you are interested in this, I invite you to try it out yourself to see what it gives you and just see what comes up and how it feels. There's also looking for blind spots and sanity checks in more specific situations. So I would give context, and once again, context is super, super important about a specific situation and talk about how I'm thinking about it and thinking through it. And then ask the LLM, can you show me my blind spots in the situation? And always to give me radical transparency, honesty, not just to flatter me or make me feel good. And oftentimes, this does help me see perspectives that I may not have thought of immediately. And as I use this over time, it also makes me better at coming up with different perspectives to evaluate. And once again, feel your body, feel the truth to see how it lands. I also like to give it what reframing perspective. So this is a little bit similar to this one, showing blind spots, but this is more explicitly reframing the perspective, suggesting alternate ways of seeing the situation. And I can even specify more optimistic, more cautious, see this like somebody else would see it, adopt different points of view. And a fourth one is this one I've been doing a lot recently, and it's been super helpful. So you give some context, and then I ask it to ask me questions to help me clarify what I really want, or what is the real thing that I'm grappling with, or what is the thing that's interesting. And I use this not only in an emotional context, but I also use it with my students. I actually literally sit down with my students and we go on ChatGPT together and then we talk about their projects. And sometimes I ask ChatGPT to help them with asking questions to get them to figure out what is the core interesting part of their project. So I talked about compasses, and given this metaphor about moving and exploring space, I kind of plotted these on the four axes of a compass: patterns, tendencies, blind spot, sanity check, reframing perspectives, exploratory questioning. But this compass rose has another four layers, and so let's go a level deeper and explore the diagonals. Another one is about distilling. And so sometimes, if you're a bit confused about what you're thinking or feeling, you have too many things in your head, you feel too many conflicting things at once, I actually just give the LLM like word vomit and then say, can you reflect back the main themes in what I'm thinking or feeling? And that oftentimes helps to clarify things. Of course, take a moment, feel your body, feel how it lands. Sometimes what it says is not on, sometimes it might be way off, but at least having it reflected back at me means that I can have something to look at and to decide and feel how it does make me feel or does not make me feel. Meta reflection. So this one, so at some point I asked ChatGPT to call me out when I use implicitly judgmental language, like when I shrink myself, when I obsess about certain topics. It didn't work super well, actually, because sometimes it was a little bit too aggressive about it, and or sometimes it interrupted the flow of the conversation. But it could be useful. And once again, this goes with the being more aware of your patterns and tendencies. And maybe this one can be more refined with, right? Like I have a tendency to obsess about certain topics, which is great when I'm working on research projects, but less great in certain other contexts. And so usually more and more I'm able to identify it myself, but sometimes having a neutral external observer help me with identifying can be helpful. Another one is the subtext. This one I've been using recently a lot also. And so I would talk about certain situations, I give my thinking, but actually there's what I avoid saying directly. And actually, the LLM is actually quite good at identifying that. Caution, this might also be triggering. You can ask the LLM to go slowly, layer by layer. But once again, right, I recommend that you do this when you're in a safe place at home, when you are not in a rush, when you can sit with it and reflect on it, because it does provide very useful tools for reflection. Finally, the idea of archetypes. So people like tarot, people like, I don't know, mythology. There's like Jungian archetypes because I think there are certain situations in life where, right, it's not unique. There are situations that repeat. And I think giving context, giving a specific situation, and just asking about what archetypes across mythology, literature, art this resonate with can also give some perspective and can also, I don't know, give more beauty to life, which is something that makes me happy. So let's plot all of these. I didn't plot them on the compass, but I hope you remember them. But just to finish, I would actually like to leave you with two more Chinese farmer stories to go with the theme that Yannick started. So 成语 in Chinese are these four-word phrases that are basically parables, and each one is a story with an image with a lesson afterwards. So 塞翁失马, the one that Yannick talked about, is about basically wait and see, right? You never know whether something's going to be good or bad. Don't judge beforehand. The two that I picked, since it's always nice to have three, is the one on the left is called 守株待兔. And it's about a Chinese farmer who, well, works very hard being a farmer, but one day he's sitting next to a bush or a tree, a stump, and there's a rabbit that comes out of the forest who runs into the stump and dies. And he's like, oh my gosh, free rabbit. He takes the rabbit home, he cooks it, has a nice, delicious, hearty stew. And he's like, man, why do I even bother to farm when I can just have a rabbit come to me for free? And so he stopped working. His fields went withered and he had no crops and didn't turn out so well for him that winter. I hope he had friends. The moral of this story is that well, there's the what you get in is what you get out. But even though sometimes the AI might give you what seems like magical things, to not just content with your first attempts, right? It's all about having a companion to help you ask the difficult questions, to help you reflect. And the more that you dig, actually, the more that you will understand about yourself. But there are also limits, right? Because you also have to kind of sit with it with your own body, and everything takes time. Which gets me to the second proverb, which is 拔苗助长. So there is a farmer, and this guy planted all his fields, and he sees the plants and they're starting to grow. And he's like, man, they're growing so slowly. Why don't I help them grow a bit? And so he goes to all of his plants and he just like pulls on them because he's like, oh, they can look taller. Well, you can guess what happened, right? It kind of killed all his plants. And so I think also in introspection, even if you're using something as potent as an AI tool, there are still no shortcuts. Even though it might speed up some of the process, you still have to go through the process and you still have to reflect. And sometimes also just being aware of a pattern in yourself isn't the end of the story. You also have to integrate it in how you live. And, these days I like to just remind everybody, don't forget to feel your body and don't forget to breathe. And that's all for my part. I think maybe we can open the Q&A to everybody, and I need to leave in 3 minutes to pick up my kid from the daycare.
All the questions first that are there for Xiao and I. We have a little bit more time for question that people have for me. Makes sense, I guess. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think it's really lovely that we have kind of complementary perspectives.
Absolutely. Yeah, feel free to
Should we look in the
raise.
chat? I think questions are supposed to in the chat or doo. Ooh, I love the notes that Robin wrote down. That's great.
Fantastic. Otherwise, we can also have 2-3 minutes a dialogue, you and me, Xiao, on
Oh,
what
yeah.
we just discussed, because there's also maybe one interesting angle, which is the fine lines between creativity of human beings and AI at the moment, where people can write entire poems, right? And you can say, make it the style of Goethe or Hennessy or anybody who was a big writer. And it's sometimes difficult to tell apart AI from human being. And although I would claim that there's the soul aspect kind of missing sometimes, right? Because they're imitation tools, right? LLMs are. Whilst we, create and they create, the question remains at the end of the day, what is the difference, right? If I write a poem, you write a poem, and I've had this experience. I wrote a short story with an AI and I gave it to people and they couldn't tell when I was writing parts and when I wrote parts, which I find fascinating. But then if they had to guess, they were more usually right than wrong, although it was difficult. So when it comes to creating art, especially, right, which is something that was considered purely human so far, now we have got competition. And
yeah,
that raises the question, what are the differences, in your opinion? In my opinion, is something, it's like a sixth sense, maybe, right? If you're very intuitive, you could distinguish between AI has a certain pattern, right? There are even AI tools to recognize AI, right, from human. If you're a student and you write something completely with AI, there are tools to detect that. But for us humans, it's kind of sometimes difficult to actually make a difference.
So I think maybe the point that I'll leave everybody with is a reflection on the role of art in the 21st century. So I'm thinking of Walter Benjamin, the role of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, and now we have art in the age of AI. So previously, art was so much about making a product at the end, whether it's a painting, sculpture, poem, music that's kind of delivered to an audience that kind of has a sort of emotionally resonant experience from the art. I feel like right now the art is going to be more and more about the process of creating the art, which allows the person who's creating to be more connected with their sixth sense of something that resonates inside them. And so I think that it's actually democratizing because actually I think everybody has this possibility, except for in the past, there has been sort of this like classism between people who are kind of trained as professional artists who have the right to produce this for the public and kind of amateurs who are a bit looked down upon. Sure, I mean, there's like a difference in quality. Sure, we appreciate all the years of craft the professionals have gone into to hone their art making abilities. But I do feel like actually what is even more important is just the process of connecting to your soul, if you will. And for me, the soul is the thing that vibrates, that resonates inside me, the energies, the waves that I feel. And it's through creating that I activate this. And it's also through, I don't know, meditating and feeling my body and breathing that I connect to this. And actually, it's that thing that differentiates us from AI. And in today's days and age, when people are so easily manipulated, so easily lost, so detached and kind of brainwashed, it's more essential than ever to have people have practices to connect to their bodies, as Jannik is talking about. And I think artistic practices are a wonderful way to do that. And I'm all about art in education to create more conscious people who can co-create. And with that, I leave all of you. Hope to meet some of you guys. Thank you for your lovely attention. And thank you again, Jannik, for letting me be a part of this. And thank you, Robin, also. It's been a pleasure.
Fantastic.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Right. Actually, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I would love to have. I see Zoltan, you're still in the meeting, and you also come from a space of art and spirituality. It would be interesting to hear your opinion on it, if you like.
Hello, Jannik. I don't know if you can hear me. My setup is a little bit off now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Um, I'm really happy. I wasn't sure what I'm, diving into, but I do feel that it's right on spot, especially this last notion about the art moving towards the process and not actually the end product, and that is very that actually is a fundamental takeaway from my side. I've been Beatrix said me it's kind of unknown because for us he's a kind of Hungarian, so it's like we have thought about him a little bit. So the flow in itself is also at one point, for example, so flow as important, not important, basically is fundamental place to be as in creation, let's say, and I was also thinking of basically just I would be super happy if my um, let's say people who I work with or who I collaborate with, or for example, if I would like to uh, purchase a product, I would go and purchase a flow cycle, let's say. So if I would work together with a developer, I wouldn't say like, okay, I would like 8 hours of your time. It's like it's perfectly fine if it's one flow cycle. Already I would be very happy with that collaboration. So flow cycles being like sometimes the 10x of creativity. So that's a very important part. And I would like to maybe talk with you about it later. But yes, we are definitely in the transition, and also regarding the AI and the creation with AI, how we can differentiate. There is a very interesting kind of real like one word can be the takeaway. So one little offsetting, just a little bit intuitively offsetting word can give can be the telltale of it. Is it an AI or not? And which we only sometimes just feel it intuitively and not even can put our finger on it. How come that certain word actually appears there? It's not actually that's not naturally human. So that and it's also very interestingly how what is interesting, like how the AI actually affects us, our internal system, how AI changes us, not how we train AI, but how what we are training as a human kind of like society, how they can actually come back with education, and how these AIs educate people is super important because we are also getting a little bit less smart apparently with using the AI and yeah.
Absolutely. There's two things I would say to this. First of all, the more you pass on the creative process to AI, the less creative you get.
Yeah.
And I think you have to distinguish, at least in my opinion, when using AI, pass on the autonomous, monotonous things that don't involve creativity and do the creative part yourself. Now, the second thing is I've wondered during the presentation, actually, because I say what we share with God is creation. But now what I wonder is if they create, machines start creating, if not the one factor that combines us is actually consciousness. So I think that's something to ponder about after this webinar.
Yes, and what is the truth? So actually, we get also really good help to ground our consciousness or the things which agree about regarding reality into factual truth or as factual truth as possible with the help of some of the AI. So that could also be a thing, an aspect of elevating consciousness and being grounded in as much objective reality as possible. Of course, everything is Maya, right? So, but yes.
Amazing, Zoltan. I've got two more questions for two people very quickly, and then we can wrap up. Rishi Ranch, I don't know if you can turn the mic on. I know you collect art in Mumbai, and if machines actually could create art, how would that change your reality and your perception of these paintings, the beautiful ones that you have in Mumbai? If you can't turn on your microphone, that's fine. Happy to discuss it afterwards. I'm interested. And then we have Alex Dragoyan here. Are you there? If not, we can wrap up. Anyone has a question, even Marcus or whoever is there. One
No,
question.
sorry, like I'm okay. No questions. Thank you.
No questions? Okay. Fantastic. If there are no questions left, I thought it was a very interesting discussion. I hope you found that too. And maybe I'll leave you with a very last thought that if you do take into consideration, right, to wrap around again what mental health means and energy, and then obviously AI comes into this, ideally helping us with saving energy, not draining it. Right? If you keep flicking through Instagram, it's probably draining, but if you use it to say, oh, I'm organizing events, give me the 5 best events or catering companies nearby, it saves you the energy to do actually the research and put your brains into it and look for it. So the distinction really is here. When we talk about mental health, we talk about flow and creative processes, and weaving in AI. Again, I repeat myself, but consciousness is the seed for everything. Be conscious of where AI is taking your energy away and where it can actually assist you, and then use it that way. For me, that's the nutshell of this entire topic. So thank you all very much for joining. We're slightly over time, so apologies. It's been a great pleasure to work with unDavos, and hopefully we can continue the dialogue someday.
Thank you so much, Jannik. And also Dr. Xiao, which left, for a beautiful and inspiring session. I'll definitely carry this mindful feeling into the week. And with that, thank you to all that also joined with your presence and curiosity in chat and the questions you had, Sultan. With that, see you all at unDavos Summit or in Davos, and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.